Welcome back to Stasis, Geek. Masters of the Air. When it got announced, I was like, ooh, at last we're going to get kind of a new band of brothers, a new Pacific, but in the air. Yeah? And then when the trailer got shown, I was like, ooh, this could be good. Looking forward to this. So we got the first 2 episodes dropped. And my first thoughts are boring. And it's a shame. Yeah? Because there was moments in Band of Brothers and Pacific that were absolutely amazing. But they were amazing because of the characters, how they brought up the characters. So when something happened, you were there. You were rooting for them. You cried with them. Yeah. This does not introduce any character building within the first 2 episodes. So it lays so flat. It's just like, oh, I'm not really interested in that character. They're doing things on screen. That's it. Now, there are moments in Pacific that where it shows the moments of boredom being in the military. So I like them being ex-Royal Air Force. It showed that moments where you having that waiting game. Yeah, they're really interested. But they don't even do that in this. It just falls flat is when they're trying to do those build-up moments. Because you don't care about the characters. Yeah, they have the main 2 is Buck and Bucky. And they have this short bit at the start where you think you're going to see a backstory. Yeah, you're going to actually, this is why I should root for them. And it just moves on. And then you don't get any other information about them, really. They're just on screen. Now, Austin Butler is probably the only American in this show because all the rest are English and Irish or Scottish or whatever, Welsh actors. It's a bit strange. Don't know why they couldn't get Americans to play a group of American bombers. Don't get that. But if you had to take his portrayal of Elvis and then dumb it down by 20%, that is what he's doing. So it's a bit odd that he's still portraying Elvis-ish on screen. So I don't get that. I found it weird because it's not his original accent. So I don't know why he's stuck with it. But there's going to be others that not just with the character building this, you're going to get technical issues. Now, I'm not going to go into that because you want to move that aside for the story. Yeah, and the story should be driven around the characters because it's a World War II story. So you have to think about not just what's going on in the bigger picture, is how you drive the characters. And they're going to be the ones who go, oh, the bomber couldn't have done that. You know, the takeoff, the runway. Yeah, and it annoyed me because I'm ex-Royal Air Force. But I pushed that aside. But the problem is with this is how it's shot as well. Because though they should have, when they're on the ground, they should be doing the character building. They should be having the laughs, the jokes, the anguish of being away from home. Yeah? They're not. It's just next mission. Let's go. So you want to be able then to see is the bombing runs. Yeah? Of how dangerous it is. But the problem is when you're going to do anything this is when they're doing the dialogue, what is very modern. It's not 1940s dialogue. So it puts you off there is, of course, mask. The best way to put it for you is they've got it on. So you've got that to give the deliverance of the kind of actor's way of how the dialogue is going. But it doesn't work. So what they should have done is made it more fast action in the things. But they didn't have to do it from the bombers. Because when they get attacked multiple times in this by fighters from the Luftwaffe, you don't see them. It's like, oh, they're gone. You're going to have to pause it to find out what aircraft that is. But they could have done it a certain ways. When they're doing the flak, they could have done it having that point of view of how the flak's going off. You know, the danger from the I suppose from the sight, from the ground, they could have done that. But they could have done it from the German point of view. Is literally what is going on. There's a bit where they do a dockyard, looks like. But they could have had people running for their lives. Actually showed, what is happening on the ground as well. There is nothing like that. So it doesn't give you the sense of danger. It just sends you like bomber aircraft going really slow. Like they did. Yeah? And then they get lost. A lot of the times because with the story, not too many spoilers, is where one of the navigators is airsick all the time. It's quite interesting at start, but then it gets a bit boring. But the problem is when you don't have that engagement of a threat, yeah, you should have the fighter pilots' point of view of them attacking the bombers, yeah, and I suppose the machine guns, I suppose, is literally what their point of view is back to them. If you like, the danger of actually seeing, gone, there is nothing of that. So the perspective of danger isn't there. And the dialogue they put in with them doing their runs or going back isn't very interesting. They needed a bit more lift in the danger element, or a bit more protocol of how, what the runs are. Because when it goes back and then they're back on the ground, it's just done and dusted. And it's now, we're waiting for the next mission. Yeah. But the people who even there's a couple of injuries, that's the best way to put it, and a few deaths. But you don't get interested in the deaths because when the bombers go, you don't know who's in it because you might have seen the character for like literally 30 seconds on screen. So when these ones get injured, you're like, oh, they got injured. Oh, okay, that's how they, and there's a bit with the doctors and you're like, oh, it's moved on. So even the ones who I'm guessing you're supposed to feel sorry for at the start, you haven't got commitment with the character to feel sorry for them. You just know, oh, they're part of the unit and now they're injured. And then you're like, but I don't feel any connection with them, so just move on. And that is the problem with this, is everybody's going to refer to it where you have those characters in Band of Brothers and Pacific that you knew about. You were with them. You were standing with them whilst watching the show. This engagement is not very good. So we have to see, because episode 3 and 4 has got to ramp up. You've got to feel some love for these characters, because at the moment the story is a bit dull and it makes you feel less engaged than you should be. You should be, you should be fixed to the screen. I just switched off at one point. I was like, I picked up my mobile, went on the social, because I was like, nothing's happening on the screen. So I got very, very bored, and that's a shame, because of being Air Force, I wanted to love this and it's not. Now you're going to go into the history of it and you're going to be biting if you're really into that, but it should have been just a character-driven story. It's not. So I'm going to have to give it a couple more episodes, but at the moment, those first 2 in Band of Brothers and in Pacific hooked you. This, it's a first episode. When it finished to go on to episode 2, I was like, oh, okay, we've not had any build up. It's a bit odd. So I would give that a 4, and then the second one that's when I kind of switched off. It's a 3. So it is a very poor start for something that, they hyped it. It's the production guys who behind Band of Brothers and Pacific, and it's not there. It feels like they're a $500,000 short on every episode. It feels cheap. It feels like the shots they should have done are missing somehow. The editing is a bit weird with the around the aircraft, because that's the technical issues. It's cut bad in editing, so you're like, oh, that wouldn't have happened. But okay, it might have made the movie, like the episode's 10 minutes longer. But yeah, it's a shame. It feels a bit cheap. I don't know if they just put it on trying to get the cast, but then the cast at the moment, they're reading lines, but they're not engaging me. But it's the story that unfortunately is a letdown, because there isn't that danger. There isn't the relationship between the squadron, the RAF unit that isn't really shown. There's a couple of RAF guys. What's a stupid scene? And then the locals, there's no danger there. Here's a good example. I can't remember which officer it is, but he's got somebody who's from Norwich. I think so. So she comes down. Yeah. So there's a scene, they can see Norwich getting bombed. Yeah. But wouldn't it be interesting of the love interest to have gone back to Norwich for some reason, and that night the bombings happened, and then oh no, she's there. Yeah, there was none of that. Yeah, he could have been frightened and you would have got their engagement. Then it could have shown, in the streets or around the factories, the bombs dropping and actually the danger there, before the civilians. There was none of that. So that's the problem. There's no the danger between I suppose, natives of Britain and the Americans is just so far apart. Yeah, it's nice. It's a bit odd because even there's Jude Law's son. He plays an engineer, a sergeant. Yeah, and he has these little engagements with the local lads, I suppose. And you're like, oh, they're going to play on that. He's a really nice fella, and he's like really down to earth. And literally, his probably dialogue on screen is probably 45 seconds because you see him and he says the odd word, and you're like, oh, they're going to, the ground staff, they're going to engage you of how the ground staff react to the pilots and everything. But there's none of that. Yeah, you have little snippets. Gone, move on. So we have to see how that plays. You've got to have one of the guys who you get invested in and is going to die and is going to make you weep. Yeah, but there's none because you don't know anybody at the moment because, yeah, the lack of story to character building isn't there. Yeah, anybody who's been in the military, you have banter back and forth. Yeah, you have a laugh a minute with the guys. There's none of this. Yeah, there's a bit of camaraderie, but it's so bleh. It's like they didn't get somebody who was in the military or talk to the guys who were at that time and said, what did you do when it was quiet time? What did you do? Because there's a bit with they do it on the bikes, like cycle bikes, and they have a little bit of fun. But even that, there's not. It's just like they got all loads of extras and go, all right, ready to cheer? Go cheer. And that's the problem. It's really bad with the cinematography on this. It lets it down. The moments that they should have upped the CGI moments, I suppose. The point of view is wrong. Yeah. And there's no danger. So at the moment, it's fell flat for me and I'm so disappointed. But yeah, give us your comments if you liked them. Yeah. Or you're waiting for that. Oh, I'm going to hold on to see if it drives forward, flies forward. But yeah, as always, give us a like if you want to like. Stasis Geek. Out.